So let's start off by talking about a sentence. A sentence has to have three components. The first component is the subject. That's your who or what your sentence is about. Then it has to have a verb, whether it's a linking verb like is or become, or an action verb like run or jump. And then it has to express a complete thought. So a sentence again has to have a subject, a verb, and express a complete thought. Well, a run-on sentence is when we actually put two sentences together the wrong way. And there are a couple of different types of run-on sentences. And let's first talk about the comma splice. And a comma splice is literally when you just throw a comma between two complete sentences. Look at this example. Alvin owns his car, comma, his mother bought it for him. Well, we actually have two sentences here. The first sentence is Alvin owns his car. The second sentence is his mother bought it for him. Well, what's the problem here? You have two separate sentences, and we learned a long time ago when you have two sentences, we use a period to stop the sentences, not a comma. So that comma after car is actually what we would call a comma splice. This is a run-on sentence because two sentences are literally running into each other. What about the next sentence? D-Lo lost his wallet. That's why he is sad. Again, we have two separate sentences here. D-Lo lost his wallet is your first sentence. That's why he is so sad is the second sentence. Notice that a comma has been thrown between two sentences, creating what we would call a comma splice, which is just a type of run-on because you have two sentences that are running into each other. Another type of run-on sentence we have is called a fuse sentence. And when we think of fuse, we just think stuck together. And so you have two sentences that are just stuck together. Justin does not like candy. He only likes pizza. So how many sentences do you have here? You have two. Justin does not like candy is your first sentence. He only likes pizza is the second sentence. Well, these sentences are fused or stuck together with absolutely no punctuation in between, creating a run-on sentence. Here's another one. Brianna gave me the only jacket she had. Now she will be cold. She is such a good friend. Well, in this example, how many sentences do we have here? Let's count. Brianna gave me the only jacket she had. One sentence. Now she will be cold. Second sentence. She's such a good friend. So we have three sentences here. They're all fused or stuck together with absolutely no punctuation, creating a very long run-on sentence. Now, another example of a run-on sentence is when you're almost there but you forget a comma. What do I mean by that? Look at this example. Mr. Coleman gave Antoine a letter, but he was not in trouble. Well, here, let's see how many sentences we have. The first sentence is Mr. Coleman gave Antoine a letter. The second sentence we have is he was not in trouble. Now, notice you have one of your fanboys, but holding these two sentences together. And as we learned a little bit earlier in the 8th grade, whenever we're going to use a fanboy to hold two sentences together, we need a comma. So this sentence is a run-on because you forgot to put your comma there. The sentence is incorrect. Even though you do have a fanboy but in between, you didn't use the comma. So this is a run-on. Let's look at your next sentence. While I was waiting for a ride, I fell asleep on the bench. This sentence is also incorrect because it is missing the comma after while I was waiting for a ride. Now, I've shown you how to find a run-on sentence, but one of the things we need to know how to do is how to fix these errors. It's a common writing mistake to create a run-on sentence, and I want you to be able to fix them. And one of the major ways to usually, and easiest way to fix a run-on sentence is just to add some punctuation. Keon lost her mind. She hit Miss Rivers in the head. Well, we can identify this as a run-on sentence. The first sentence is Keon lost her mind. The second sentence is she hit Miss Rivers in the head. Well, the easiest way to fix this is just to add punctuation. Why not just use a period and start a new sentence? Keon lost her mind. She hit Miss Rivers in the head. Or you can add a coordinating conjunction. And those are our fanboys, of course. Maybe you want to say and, or Keon lost her mind and she hit Miss Rivers in the head. So whenever you want to fix a run-on, you have one or two things to do. You can either simply add a period, or you could actually add a conjunction like but, or you could do something like so, remember, or even use and. Whatever you decide to use, make sure you know that you have to put that comma in front of it. And here are just the examples again that you can see where I actually fixed them. So you can see this, where I went in here and I actually fixed this. Okay, notice in this sentence here that we actually have a period here now, and in this sentence we added a fanboy and. Now another fix is the subordinate conjunction, which we'll get to a little bit later. We actually remember those are on the wall in the back of the room. Keon lost her mind when she hit Ms. Rivers in the head. You can use this subordinate conjunction, right here to fix that mistake. Now, another way to fix a run-on is to combine the predicates, and we talked a bunch about predicate, and predicate is just the verb part of the sentence. Let's read this run-on sentence here. Kim sent chips to the party, she sent pickles, and she sent ice cream to the party. Well, how many sentences do we have here? Let's count. Kim sent chips to the party, that's one. She sent pickles, that's the second sentence, and she sent ice cream to the party. So here we have 3 sentences. Well, we have a comma here. Who can you remember what that is when you just stick a comma in between 2 sentences? Remember, that's a comma splice here. And then look here, we have and holding 2 sentences together, but we do not have a comma there. So there's the forgotten comma. So this is still a run-on. So let's see what we can do to fix it. Right, so what did she do? Well, what did she send rather? She sent 3 things: chips, pickles, and ice cream. Well, why not just say that in one sentence? Why not just simplify this and say Kim sent chips, pickles, and ice cream to the party? So we were able to fix the run-on by simply condensing or making the sentence smaller and simpler by simply keeping the same subject. We kept Kim. There's Kim. We kept the same verb, sent, but we combined the things that she sent: the chips, the pickles, the ice cream. The chips, the pickles, and the ice cream. All right, another way that you might want to fix a run-on sentence is create a complex sentence. And we learned a complex sentence means that we're going to use, can you remember which kind of conjunction? A subordinate conjunction. All right, words like when and while, because, if, due to, and so. We can use these to help us fix a run-on sentence. Look at this example. Jeff was walking, he fell and started crying. Well, how many sentences do we have? Let's count. Jeff was walking. First sentence. He fell and started crying. Second sentence. Well, there's nothing between here, no punctuation, so this is a fused run-on sentence. So we're going to do something to fix it. Why don't we try to use one of our subordinate conjunctions? If you look at the example here, I chose to use while. While Jeff was walking, comma, he fell and started crying. Okay. Now notice here, all we did was we keep the sentence as it originally is written. Jeff was walking, he fell and started crying. So the actual words of the sentence stay the same, but once we add the subordinate conjunction as our first word, notice now we put a comma, and now we have, remember we asked ourselves while what? While Jeff was walking, comma. All right, let's keep going. So far, we've talked about run-on sentences where we actually have 2 complete sentences or more, and they're either put together with absolutely no punctuation, they're fused together, either there's a comma just thrown in between 2 complete sentences, or sometimes there's complete sentences with a fanboy, no comma, and those are all examples of run-on sentences. Well, now we're going to talk about a fragment. And what is a sentence fragment? Well, when a fragment is always just a piece of something. So instead of having a complete sentence, you have a piece of a sentence. You could be missing the verb or subject, or maybe even both, and proper punctuation. Look at these examples. Even though Chris was crying, period. Because the rain wouldn't stop, period. Before the party, period. On a clear day, period. All of these are examples of fragments, where either you're missing the actual subject of the sentence, the who, what. You possibly could be missing the verb, the action of the sentence. And remember, the last important part is it has to express a complete thought. Okay, so all of these that you see are examples of fragments. Even though Chris was crying. What remember here now, you have the words even though. So you look on the backboard, you know that would be or the back wall rather, that would be a subordinate conjunction. So if we're going to use a subordinate conjunction, we would have to use a comma somewhere and have the rest of the thought there, and it's not there. Same thing with because the rain wouldn't stop. What happened? Or even though Chris was crying, what happened? Before the party, on a clear day. All of these are examples of sentence fragments. So let's go a little deeper into this. What about when you're missing the subject? Remember, your subject is the who or what of the sentence. Look at this example. Was sitting on the steps. Well, who was? So here we have a predicate, was sitting on the steps, but we have no subject. So let's see, can we fix it? Tremarcus was sitting on the steps. You see here we've added a subject now. We have a subject and we have a predicate, so now we have a sentence. Was sharing French fries. Is this a complete sentence? No, it's not. We have the predicate, the action, sharing the French fries, but we don't know who was. So we would need to add a subject. Cooper was sharing French fries. So sometimes it's as simple as just adding a subject to our sentence. Now, what if you're missing the predicate, that action part of your sentence? A crying baby, the flowing meadow, the Statue of Liberty. We have wonderful, wonderful subjects here. We have a crying baby, a flowing meadow, and Statue of Liberty. But we don't have that crying baby doing anything, or that meadow doing anything, or the Statue of Liberty doing anything. So all of these sentences, or all of these are fragments because there's no predicate here. Now, a lot of times people think that, hey, as long as it's a lot of words, that means that you have a sentence. That's not true. We said a sentence has to have a subject, it has to have a predicate, and express a complete thought. Well, let's look at this example. The little bird on the edge of the field near the crowded streets. Well, it's long enough. It's got to be a sentence, right? No, it's not. We know that the subject of the sentence, what is the sentence about? It's about the bird. And all the rest of these are a series of prepositional phrases. The little bird, and where's that bird? He's on the edge of what? Of the field near what? The crowded streets. But the bird is not flying. He's not humming. He's not singing. We don't know what the bird is doing. So this is missing a predicate, creating a fragment. So don't let the length confuse you or trick you into think that you have a complete sentence. You still have to have a subject, a who or what, a verb, action or linking, and express a complete thought to have a sentence. So, I love to tell my students, this is one of my favorite things, beware of the ing. For some reason, we're under the impression that ing is now giving us a complete sentence. Here's my thing to you. Ing, once we make a verb in an ing, it can never stand by itself. It has to have some type of help. Okay, we're going to need a linking verb here. So look at this example. Henry slamming the door. Well, who's this sentence about? It's about Henry, and what did he do? Somebody would simply say he's slamming the door. But slamming the door is not a complete predicate. Reginald sitting on the porch. Well, I know this sentence is about Reginald, and some would say, well, there's a predicate, he's sitting on the porch. But these do not express complete thoughts because ing can never stand alone. It can never, ever sit alone. You will always need some type of linking verb in front of it. Reginald was sitting on the porch. So Reginald sitting on the porch is not a complete sentence. It's not, this is a fragment. Again, beware of the ing. Ing cannot sit alone. You have to have some type of a linking verb sitting in front of it. Here we have was. Okay, sometimes a sentence can be missing both the subject and the predicate, and you're left with things like on the way to the store. Well, if you look on our preposition tree, you'll see on. So that means the words on the way and to the store are prepositional phrases. We don't have a subject here. We don't even have a predicate. Who was on the way to the store? We have no idea. Behind my back tire. Well, on the preposition tree, we'll see the word behind. That's a location in relationship to something else. Now, behind my back tire, what was behind your back tire? You don't know. So again, you have fragments here. Be very careful with your fragments. Now, another type of fragment that you have to be aware of are the dependent clauses. Well, Ms. Rivers, what's a dependent clause? Remember our dependent clauses? We talked about this in when we did L200. Dependent clauses are, go back to tax season. This is your parents' favorite time of year. You're dependent. They get to claim you That means you're dependent on them. You depend on them. You cannot live on your own. You cannot stand on your own. And then that's what a dependent clause is. It's a group of words that begin with a subordinate conjunction, and we know our subordinate conjunctions are on our wall. Words like because, when, if, since, even though, before. These words are all subordinate conjunctions. These words start dependent clauses, and dependent clauses, just like you, are dependent on your parent. They cannot stand by themselves. So there's no reason for you to ever start off with one of these words and end with a period. If you're starting your sentence with any of these words and using a period after it, you're wrong, because these are dependent clauses. They're going to need help from an independent sentence or a sentence. So remember, they can never stand alone. It's tax season. You should know that. Your parents claim you. You cannot live on your own. You're dependent on your parents. Dependent clauses cannot stand on their own. They're dependent on an actual independent clause or another sentence. Let's look at some examples of this. When my mother called. Now, is this a sentence? Well, let's break it down. When is a subordinate conjunction. And we just said that it can't stand by itself. We just said that you cannot start off a sentence with a subordinate conjunction like when and go to a period. You just can't do it. When is a subordinate conjunction, can't stand alone the same way you cannot stand on your own. Now, look at another example. Due to the increase of students, the party has been moved to the gym. Now, here is your subordinate conjunction right here. Due to. That would be on your back wall. So once we start with this, we know we cannot go to a period, but we can move right here to this comma. So due to the increase of students, comma. Now here is the actual independent part, the actual sentence. The party has been moved to the gym. So these words, due to the increase of students, gives you your dependent clause. These words, we go from the subordinate conjunction, due to a comma. And then we give the actual sentence, the party has been moved to the gym. We have the subject here, the party, and the verb here is has been moved. Okay, so be very careful that you do not use a subordinate conjunction and go to a period. We go use a subordinate conjunction and we go to a comma, and then we add the actual sentence. Right. So just using this example again, pay attention to that. You have to pay attention to that first word. If it's a subordinate conjunction, do not go to the period. Okay, if you need to break it apart. Due to the increase of students, the party has been moved to the gym. Only one of these is an actual complete sentence, and that's the second one. The party has been moved to the gym. So that means due to the increase of students, it's not a complete sentence. Here we're going to add a comma here instead. Let's put a comma here because this is the only one that gets the check mark as being the actual complete sentence. All right, let's keep going. All right, now let's see, can you figure out which one of these sentences are the fragments, okay? David, sitting alone on the porch. Well, hey, the sentence is about David, and here's sitting alone, but what did I tell you earlier? What do you have to do? You have to beware of the ing. That makes this sentence a fragment because we have ing and there is no helping verb. So we cannot, that's definitely a fragment. Let's try another one. Sitting alone on the porch, David dreamed about the fight. Well, sitting alone on the porch, David dreamed about the fight. We have a complete sentence here. We have David, who is the subject of the sentence, and we have his action. He dreamed about the fight. And notice at the beginning of this sentence, we have something that we studied in L150. Sitting alone on the porch describes David. So this is a participle. Remember participial phrases? Not a gerund. Remember gerunds stand alone, don't need a comma. This is a participle because it's describing who? David. Let's try the third one. David, a fighter for his team. Is this a complete sentence? No, it's not. This is also a fragment because we do not have a predicate here. There's no predicate. We have David, he's our subject, but we don't have a predicate. We don't have any action that he's doing here. So this sentence is definitely a fragment. Let's go to our fourth one. David, as David was sitting on the porch, he thought about the fight. Now let's see what we have here. Let's break this into two parts. We have as David was sitting on the porch. Well, what do we know about as? Do you remember it? It's a subordinate conjunction. So whenever we start a sentence off with a subordinate conjunction, we do not go to a period. Instead, we go to a comma. Okay, and here's your actual sentence. He thought about the fight. So what here is that we actually have a complex sentence, which we talked about in L200. It's complex because you have a subordinate conjunction right here, as David was sitting on the porch. And here's the actual sentence. He thought about the fight. Here's your actual sentence. So this is correct. So this is not a fragment. David was sitting on the porch. He thought about the fight. Well, let's see. Is this a fragment? David was sitting. We do have ing, but look what's in front. This sentence is correct now because we have a linking verb. So this is good. Give that a smiley face. And then he thought about the fight. We have the subject he, and what did he do? He thought. So yes, this is a complete sentence. So let's review. The only three that were fragments were the first one, David sitting alone on the porch. That is a beware of the ing. We also have the third sentence here, David, a fighter for his team. There's no predicate here. We have no action. We just know David, he's a fighter for his team. That's all we know. So how did you do with these? Did you do okay? All right. Again, now we talked about, can we fix fragments? Whenever you have a fragment or a piece of something, that means that you're going to have to add words, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm circling this and being silly with this because this is the thing. Whenever you have a fragment, you're going to have to add words. Let's look at this a little deeper. Even though Chris was crying. Well, look what you have here. Oh my goodness, look at those first two words. You have even though. Excuse me. You have even though. Okay, now even though is another one of those subordinate conjunctions. And remember, we're never supposed to take even though to a period. You see that period? Instead, we should take it to a comma. So we know that we have a fragment here, but how do we fix this fragment? Well, we just add some words. He was still cute. Again, remember, even though we take it to the comma, and then here comes the actual sentence. He was still cute. He is the subject, and there's your linking verb was. Okay? Because the rain wouldn't stop. Well, look what we have here again. We have because, another subordinate conjunction. And we don't take subordinate conjunctions to the period. Remember, we take them to the comma. So how do we fix this? Let's add some words. So because, take it to the comma, and now let's add a sentence. The game was canceled. We have the subject, it's game, and the predicate or the action here was canceled. Okay, so keep that in mind. To fix a fragment, you're going to add words. Before the party. Now, is that a sentence? My goodness, of course not. But we do have here, let's see. Now, look, before the party, we don't want to ever take that to the comma. We don't want to take it to the period. We need to take it to the comma. So let's go and let's add some words. We have a fragment here. I got a flat. So it's pretty much with a fragment, you're missing something. You're going to have to add something to fix a fragment. Now, let's see, can we find some run-ons here? I want you to take a few minutes here to pause this recording and see if you can find the run-ons in this sentence. Okay, let's see how well you've done here. We're going to change to the pen. Roshonda backed into me as she walked down the hall. Well, the subject of the sentence is Roshonda, and what did she do? She backed into me. Now, we actually have the subordinate conjunction at the end of the sentence, as she walked down the hall. Well, this sentence is okay as it's written. This is not a run-on sentence because as she walked down the hall is not a complete sentence. It is instead just a subordinate clause. Look at this. Excuse me. Let's get the highlighter here. As she walked down the hall. Well, as here, whenever it's at the back of the sentence, we don't need a comma. Okay, so this is at the back of the sentence. Now, if I would have done this at the beginning and said, as she walked down the hall, comma, Roshonda backed into me, I would have needed a comma. But we actually stuck this at the back of the sentence. But the point is that we have a subject, Roshonda, and we have a predicate here, she backed into me. So you have a complete sentence. Look at the next one. Najee called my name, but I didn't answer. Well, let's break this down. Let's see, Najee called my name. He's our subject. Let's actually use a pen here. He's our subject. And what did he do? He called my name. There's your predicate. Now we have some other words here. We have a fanboy here. I didn't hear him. I is the subject. And then we have did hear as our verb. But remember what happens when we use a fanboy?